I start, I got the premium edition of the editing software I use, so no more watermark or time limit. Now, here's the video you clicked for. Sundiata's son wasn't half bad as a monster. He expanded the empire, passed agricultural reform, and converted the empire to Islam. Nothing fancy, just good leadership, really. He had a slight issue, however. When he died, two of his adopted sons split the empire in a vicious civil war. First, one son ruled for 4 years and was just as brutal and cruel as Suamau. After his death, his brother took the throne and was even worse somehow. The people of the empire were fed up at their leaders, and so they rose up and killed him. After this, the leaders of the original 12 Nation Alliance were tired of the violence, and for the next several years, court officials that had close ties to the late Sundiata were chosen as monsters. Things finally began to settle down. They traded with the Muslim nations in the north and led a successful military campaign. With the trade profits sky high, the Mansa funded an exploratory expedition into the Atlantic, which returned with the reports of a river flowing through the ocean. The Mansa at the time was ecstatic about this find. So ecstatic, in fact, he took 2,000 ships and set sail. He was never seen again. Mansa Musa, who was called something else at the time, but it doesn't matter, was regent for the Mansa, so 2 years after the Mansa's sails disappeared beyond the horizon, Mansa Musa declared himself Mansa. So enough of the history of Mali, let's talk about Mansa Musa himself. If you've ever heard of this guy, it's probably because he's been described as the richest man in history. And that's true, by a landslide. In fact, he had so much money that there isn't any real way to compare his wealth to modern standards. Now, let's talk about him. The Empire of Mali was not considered as prestigious as its trade partners in North Africa, and Mansa Musa could not let that slide. So he planned his Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, but he wanted to make his Hajj special. He was going to have the most extravagant Hajj in human history. His caravan had tens of thousands of people in it, and thousands of camels and servants carried provisions for all of them. By some accounts, it took his caravans days to pass. Needless to say, it made quite an impression, but there was a slight issue. The Quran, Muslim Bible, requires those who can afford it to give money to the poor. Mansa Musa, a devout Muslim, would hand out bags of gold to anyone down on their luck. He also bought souvenirs at insanely high prices. He spent so much gold in places like Cairo and Medina that he crashed the price of gold so much that when he tried to fix it by taking out loans from moneylenders, it still took over a decade for gold to return to its usual price. This lavish display of wealth wasn't just to show off, well, that certainly was part of it, but it was also to attract scholars, bureaucrats, and other thinkers to the Mali Empire. On his way back, he took a different route, this time through Timbuktu, which was recently conquered by his son. He took delight in his new lands, but Timbuktu especially. There, he put all of those scholars, bureaucrats, and architects to good use. They designed many buildings for the city, including the Ginginboro Mosque, which still stands to this day. Mali became the center for Islamic culture and law in sub-Saharan Africa, converting many of its neighbors. Timbuktu was a major knowledge hub for Islamic law and philosophy and many other fields of study. It also had many books written and imported and had a large book copying industry. But this is only one side of the story of Mansa Musa. Local storytellers called him foolish and said he wasted the imperial treasure on frivolities. So after his death, the Mali Empire did what the Ghana Empire did, and just kind of slowly died from the inside. My last video got quite a bit of views, so if this video gets that much support, I'll talk about the decline of the Mali Empire.